Hello everyone, and welcome to this in-depth analysis of one of the most alarming developments in the ongoing Middle East conflict. On March 21–22, 2026, U.S. President Donald Trump issued a stark and direct threat to Iran. If Tehran does not fully reopen the Strait of Hormuz within 48 hours, without any threats or interference, the United States will hit and obliterate Iran's various power plants, starting with the biggest one first. Since the 1979 Islamic Revolution, relations have been hostile. With energy as a flashpoint, the U.S. has imposed sanctions on Iran's oil sector for decades, aiming to curb its nuclear program and regional influence. In 2019-2020, under Trump's first term, tensions peaked with the killing of General Qasem Soleimani and Iranian attacks on Saudi Aramco facilities blamed on Iran-backed groups. The 2015 nuclear deal (JCPOA) briefly eased sanctions, but Trump withdrew in 2018, reimposing maximum pressure. Fast forward to 2025-2026, escalation began with Israeli strikes on Iranian military and missile sites in October 2024, avoiding nuclear and oil facilities at U.S. urging, but the conflict has expanded. Israel hit energy targets like the Sharon oil depot and Shar Ray refinery in Tehran. Iran retaliated against Gulf LNG sites. U.S. involvement grew, with strikes on military targets like Karg Island's non-oil infrastructure. Now, Trump's threat directly ties U.S. military action to energy flow restoration. It's a calculated escalation. Power plants are vulnerable, civilian impacting, and symbolic of regime weakness. Analysts note this could lead to rolling blackouts across Iran, exacerbating economic woes and domestic unrest. Iran has responded defiantly. Officials warned that any attack on its energy or electricity infrastructure would make all oil facilities and energy infrastructure in the region where Americans have stakes legitimate targets. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps (IRGC) vowed complete destruction of Gulf LNG sites if attacks continue. Iran has already demonstrated capability. Missile strikes on Gulf LNG terminals like in Qatar, oil depots in Saudi Arabia, and threats to close the Strait permanently. A senior source told Tasnim News, if America makes a mistake, all such facilities will be destroyed. Quote, Iran's strategy appears twofold: retaliate asymmetrically through proxies and direct strikes to inflict economic pain globally, forcing de-escalation by hitting allies' energy assets. Tehran aims to divide the U.S. from Gulf partners and raise oil prices to unsustainable levels, yet Iran faces limits. It exports 1 to 2 million barrels per day through the Strait, its economic lifeline, mostly to China. Closing it hurts Iran too. Domestic gas shortages from South Pars damage have caused blackouts, weakening the regime's position. If the U.S. follows through, strikes on power plants would be precise, likely using cruise missiles, stealth bombers, or drones from carriers in the Gulf or bases in the region. Targets could include major facilities like the Bushehr nuclear power plant, though avoided for radiation risks. Thermal plants in Tehran, or hydroelectric dams. Consequences: massive civilian disruption, potential regime instability, but also escalation risks. Iran could mine the Strait, swarm U.S. ships with fast boats and drones, or launch ballistic missiles at U.S. bases. Cyberattacks on U.S. energy infrastructure are a real threat. DHS has warned companies to bolster security. The U.S. has 50,000 plus troops in the region, plus advanced air defenses, but a wider war could draw in allies, disrupt shipping beyond Hormuz, e.g., Red Sea, and spike global oil prices to $150 plus per barrel. Israel's role: Netanyahu has coordinated with Trump but acted independently on some strikes. Trump reportedly asked Israel to avoid further gas field hits, but tensions remain. Energy markets are already in turmoil. Oil prices have soared due to disrupted flows and attacks. LNG prices spike as Qatar's facilities take hits. Qatar supplies much of Europe's gas post-Russia-Ukraine. Global impact: higher fuel costs. Fuel inflation, slow growth, hit consumers in India, Europe, China. This ultimatum, posted on Truth Social and echoed across global media, marks a dramatic escalation in what has become a full-scale war involving the U.S., Israel, and Iran. The threat targets Iran's energy infrastructure, specifically its electricity generation plants, rather than just military or nuclear sites. Developing nations face energy shortages. Strategic reserves (U.S. SPR, IEA) could be tapped, but prolonged disruption would be catastrophic. For India, relevant given prior Qatar context, as a major LNG importer from Qatar and oil importer via Hormuz, any prolonged closure threatens supply security and prices. This crisis tests alliances. Gulf states fear becoming battlegrounds. China, Iran's oil buyer, urges restraint. Russia may exploit chaos. Trump's approach: maximum pressure for quick concessions, but risks miscalculation. He claims the war could wind down soon, yet threats suggest otherwise possible outcomes. Diplomatic backchannel via Oman, Qatar, partial reopening, or full escalation. Nuclear sites remain red lines, strikes there could trigger radiation disasters. In conclusion, Trump's threat to obliterate Iran's power plants over the Hormuz blockade is a high-stakes gamble. It aims to force compliance but risks broader war, energy chaos, and humanitarian crisis. The next 48 hours, and beyond, will determine if this de-escalates or spirals into one of the most dangerous conflicts of our time. Thank you for listening. Stay informed as events move fast. Like, share, and subscribe for more updates on global energy and geopolitics. This is not idle rhetoric. It comes amid active hostilities where energy facilities on both sides have already been hit, sending shockwaves through global oil and gas markets. In this voiceover, we'll break down the context, the specifics of the threat, Iran's response, the strategic implications, economic fallout, geopolitical ramifications, and what might happen next. This crisis isn't just regional, it's a potential turning point for global energy security and international stability. The core issue revolves around the Strait of Hormuz, the narrow waterway connecting the Persian Gulf to the Arabian Sea. Roughly 20% of the world's daily oil supply, about 21 million barrels, and a significant portion of liquefied natural gas (LNG) pass through this choke point. Iran has effectively disrupted traffic here through a combination of missile threats, attacks on tankers, and declarations that it will not allow exports from the region until hostilities cease. In recent days, Iran has intensified attacks on energy infrastructure across the Gulf, targeting sites in Saudi Arabia, Qatar, the UAE, and Kuwait. These strikes are retaliation for Israeli attacks on Iranian facilities, including a major hit on the South Pars gas field, the world's largest natural gas reserve, shared with Qatar and supplying about 70% of Iran's domestic gas needs. South Pars, particularly the facilities at Asaluya, suffered extensive damage, disrupting Iran's gas production and exports. President Trump has made it clear, the U.S. views any sustained closure or threat to the Strait as unacceptable. In his ultimatum, he demanded Iran reopen the Strait, fully, without threat, within 48 hours. Failure to comply, he warned, would trigger U.S. strikes on power plants. This is a shift from earlier statements where Trump spoke of winding down the war after achieving objectives ahead of schedule. Now, the focus is on restoring energy flows to prevent a global economic catastrophe. Why power plants specifically? Iran's electricity grid is already strained by sanctions, mismanagement, and prior strikes. Targeting power infrastructure would cause widespread blackouts, crippling industries, hospitals, and civilian life, potentially pressuring the regime without directly hitting nuclear sites, which have been avoided so far to prevent radiation risks, or major oil export terminals like Karg Island. This isn't the first time energy infrastructure has been central to U.S.-Iran confrontations.